Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're now finally going to discuss how to write your own modules and packages. So we understand how to install external packages that people uploaded to PyPy. Let's explore how to create our own modules and packages. And to clarify some of the semantics here, modules, it's really just a .py script. So it's a fancy way of saying, here's a .py script that I'm using in another .py script. So that act of using it in another .py script allows you to call it a module. Again, this is really just semantics, but packages are then a collection of modules. However, there's a key .py script called __init__.py that needs to be placed inside of a folder to let Python know that this collection of .py scripts should be treated as an entire package. So we're going to show all of this through some examples. Keep in mind, since we're dealing with .py scripts here, we're not going to be able to show these examples through the notebook. Instead, what we're going to need to do is use Sublime Text Editor or any other IDE that works with .py files in order to create the scripts and folders. Let's get started by opening up Sublime Text Editor. Alright, so we're going to start off by creating two files here. The first one, we'll save it to the desktop. We'll say File, New File, or we can actually save the one we currently have. Save as, and on my desktop, I'm going to save this as my module.py. So this is the module, and remember all that a module is just a .py script being called in from another file. So let's create that other file. We'll say new file, and this one, we're going to save it also on the desktop in the same location as my module.py, and we'll say my program.py and save that. So inside my module, what I'm going to do is just create a very simple function. We'll say def, and then say myfunc. And all this does is it prints out, hey, I am in my module.py. Control S to save that. And then in my program, this is another .py script, and I want to use the code from my module. So here we can get the idea that if you have a really large script, you're not going to put everything in one giant .py file. Instead, it will be nice to split it up between multiple .py files, which means just split it up between different modules. And then later we'll see how we can aggregate a bunch of modules to create a package. So far, what we're going to do is in my program say from my module import, and then we're going to import my func. And let me make sure I spell that right. Okay, my_func. And that means I can now call it here. So we'll say myfunc. I'm going to save this, and let's see if it worked by going to our command line. So here I am now at my command line. Remember, I saved these files at my desktop. So let's cd to the desktop, change directory. And now I should be able to call Python and then call my program.py, hit enter, and I see, hey, I am my module.py. So we were able to successfully call the other function from the other module.py file into my program.py. And this is the very basic way of how you would actually format .py scripts in order to not have everything in a single script. Now at a certain point, even this is going to start to be too much, and now you're going to want to aggregate modules together to form a package, and that way you can have different folders for different packages. So let's now show you how to create a packages. So we're going to come back here to my program.py and my module.py, and we'll open up and say new file, and then we're going to save this, save as, and here at my desktop, I'm going to do a few things. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new folder here. In this folder, we'll call it my main package. Hit enter. And then inside of this folder, we're going to create another new folder, and we'll call this sub package. So we're going to be creating lots of files and folders here. So right now we have at my desktop my module.py and my program.py, and I've also created my main package folder, and inside of that I have my sub package. Now since these are just directories or folders, we need to let Python be able to understand that we want to treat these directories not just as a normal directory, but as an actual package. So to do that, inside both my main package and sub package, I'm going to have to create a file called __init .py. Save that and make sure you have this init py file in your package. Now, you don't actually need to write anything in this file. It just needs to be there so that when Python goes searching through these packages, it understands that it's not just a normal directory, it's an actual package. So we're going to create one more file. We'll say new file, and we're going to save this. Under subpackage, we'll create another underscore underscore init underscore underscore .py file. And again, this one's going to be blank as well. So we have both of these. Notice here how Sublime's telling us which one we're referring to, this one in main package and this one in the sub package. So we're going to close these. We're not going to be working with them anymore. We just need to have them named there. Okay, so I have my module and my program. What I'm going to do now is say File, New File, and I will say Save As, and inside of my main package, and I'm going to create some main script.py, save that, and then what I'll also do is say File, New File, and let's put another .py script inside of my sub package. So we will say File, Save As, and inside of this sub package, along with that other init file, we're going to create the following. We will say my subscript.py. So now I have this outside module, some main script inside of that main package folder, this subscript inside of that sub package folder, and then my main program. So what we can do is we can start playing around with this all the way from my program. So what I'm going to do is inside of my subscript, we'll say def, then say sub report, and have that print out, hey, I'm a function inside my subscript. Control S to save that. We're going to do a very similar thing here in some main script, and we'll say def. We'll call this report main. And this will print out, hey, I am in some main script in main package. Save that as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the directory right now. We'll say open file just so we can explore this. So at my desktop right now, I have this mymodule.py. We won't really be playing with that anymore, but instead I have this myprogram.py. And we can think of myprogram.py as the main.py script I want to run. And I want to organize my files into packages. So right now we've explored how to actually create a single module, which is just a .py script. And you can imagine we'd be importing from various modules, so various .py scripts, but at a certain point it's going to be too much and we want to organize them into folders. So the way you would do that is you would have packages, which are just directories that have this init.py, so underscore underscore init underscore underscore .py, and that tells Python, hey, this actual directory, it has a bunch of modules in it, so you can call them using a certain syntax, which we're about to show you. So here we have some main script. You can imagine that I could have many more .py scripts or many more .modules inside of this main package, and we can keep going with sub packages as long as they have this init.py, and here I can see my subscript. So I'm going to cancel this, and what I'm going to do is inside my program.py, I've already know how to import from a module, but now let's realize how to import from a package. To import from a package, what I can say is from my main package, I can either import the actual module itself. So remember the module in my main package, it was called some main script. So we'll say some main script. And if I wanted to import from a sub package, what I would do is say from my main package dot sub package, and then I can import some module from there. So in this case, it was called my subscript. So this is now how you can organize not just into a single directory, but you can actually organize into subdirectories as well. And this is the syntax for that. You say dot, the name of that sub package, import, and then import the modules. And if you want, you can go even further and actually import only specific functions. So we'll show you how to do that in just a second, but let's actually call the functions from some main script. So from some main script right here, we want to call the function that's inside that script. So if we click back here, we realize that that one is just called report main. So coming back, we'll say some main script, report main, close parentheses. So we're actually executing the function report main, which is under some main script module, which is under my main package. Then we also want to, if we look at my subscript, that has the sub report. So let's run that as well. We'll say my subscript, call sub report, open close parentheses. So let's save that, and then let's run my program.py at the command line so we can see what happens. All right, so now here back on my desktop at the command line, I will say Python, call my program.py, and I hit enter, and now I see, hey, I am some main script in main package, and then, hey, I'm a function inside my subscript. And that's it. Now you've successfully not only created a module in the first part of this lecture, but you've also created packages and sub-packages. And in general, the idea here is just how do you organize various Py scripts? As you begin to grow better and better in Python, you're going to write more and more Python code. So at the beginning, you'll create a couple of modules. They'll all be in the same folder, no big deal. Then as it starts getting more and more unwieldy to have it all in the same folder, all you need to do is create directories that have that special __init __.py file. That just tells Python, hey, this is now a package, and it allows you to run what we see here, this my main package, my main.sub package. Okay, that's the basic idea of packages and modules. If you have any questions, feel free to post to the Q&A forums, and we'll be happy to help you out there. I'll see you at the next lecture.